Hey, what's up, guys? Hello, Footballtalk here. We are back with another weekly recap, looking at this Week 10 slate, which will run through all 14 games and break down what happened. Once again, if this is your first time listening to one of these videos, there are timestamps linked below for all individual games in the description if you don't have time to listen to the whole thing. And I put up my mid-season NFL awards picks last week on my page hellosforfootballtalk.com if you're interested in that. But with that being said, let's get right into these games with the Packers at the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. This was a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game, one of two matchups where the 49ers blew out the Packers. However, the injury-riddled Niners came into this one without a single offensive starter from that game. As crazy as that sounds, the Packers were coming off a loss to the Vikings at home, where they could not stop Dalvin Cook all day long, which is why the 49ers weren't a good matchup on paper when you look at their well-designed run game, but this was never close beyond the first quarter. The Packers continued their impressive streak of scoring on their first drive, as they heavily featured Darren Jones on their first possession after he came back from injury, but he looked really explosive early on, before Davante Adams was able to just get his elbow to land in bounds on a high punt catch for yet another touchdown to add to his resume. After punts for both teams, the 49ers would put up their only points of the first half, as a huge catch and run play from Richie James on a deep in-breaking route off play action, where he was wide the hell open, got San Francisco into the red zone, but after on third down, a touchdown on a corner route to River Craycraft, who had one catch in his career up to that point, that was ruled incomplete and had them settle for 3. The Packers went 3 and out right after that, with a bad drop from Marquez Valdes-Scantling right at the mark on the shallow cross on third down, but after another deep in route from Richie James got the Niners to midfield, Nick Mullins just threw it up for grabs, with Preston Smith in his face as he had the back by himself in the flats until the rather unknown Raven Green got there to pick off the floater. That's when this game completely got out of hand, as Rodgers hit Adams on a simple flat route on the 4th and inches, even though Jamar Taylor was all over it. And a few plays later, the Packers quarterback just lobbed it to a wide open Mercedes Lewis in the end zone, who slipped out late after they faked the boot the other way. And after Mullins got lucky to not be picked off by Daniel Savage sitting on a route over the middle and had to punt yet again, Rodgers went back to MVS on a 56-yard bomb on a post route for their third touchdown of the game. The Niners started the second half with another 3 and out before Adams badly beat Jason Verrett on a stutter and go, where he's off for a touchdown if he can just keep his momentum in bounds, before MVS got his second touchdown in the back of the end zone as he worked back towards Rodgers, who escaped to the right. And a couple of plays later, Za'Darius Smith beat backup left tackle Justin Skule for a strip sack on Mullins, which already set up his offense at midfield. The two Smith brothers had plenty of success against Skule and got a few more hits on the quarterback because of it. When the Niners got the ball back, they hit on their biggest play of the night on a delayed slip screen to Richie James, who went 47 yards with good-looking blocking out in front. But when it got to a 4th and short, Mullins was popped on a quarterback sneak, giving the ball back to Green Bay. And on the ensuing third down for the Packers, Rodgers had another beautiful hookup with Adams on a slot fade against linebacker Jamar Taylor, and I have no idea why any team would still allow him to get that kind of matchup, which ended up in another punt for Mason Crosby to make the score 34-3. San Francisco would score 2 more touchdowns to make the final result look better than it actually was, with a wide open Ross Dwelly catching a seam route as the underneath defenders jumped on the shallow crosser, and then Richie James going the final 41 yards as he was all by himself on a fade route out of a wide receiver stack with 2 defenders trailing another crosser, and then Jerick McKinnon scored with 2 seconds remaining, only to fuck up my fantasy team. This was never really close beyond the first quarter, like I said. San Francisco's defense simply could not get off the field on third downs. And for all defenses that run those single high coverages, where even when you run cover 3 match, it mostly turns into man, and those teams will have major problems with Davante Adams, because he's playing like the best receiver in all of football right now. Plus, Rodgers is obviously on fire himself. Finished the night with 25 of 31 for just over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And even though the Packers defense was going up against the practice squad team, it felt like, at least they showed they won't be schemed to death with Kyle Shanahan on the other end, and they allowed only 55 yards rushing, even though there were a few blown coverages obviously. But now let's move on to the Sunday slate, with the New York Giants at the Washington football team, an NFC East battle. The Giants got across midfield on just the 3rd play of the game, with a nice reverse to Sterling Shepard, but then Dion Lewis got stuffed on the 4th and 1 at the Ranger field goal range, only for Antonio Gibson to give the ball right back on a fumble after a nice looking catch and run, where the two teams seemed to play hot potato with it, as a good 10 players had a shot at the loose ball. Right after that, Daniel Jones found a wide open Austin Mack at the sideline off an out and up route for 50-yard completion, which set up the game's first points on a field goal. That was followed up by 3 and outs for both teams, as Logan Thomas dropped a third down pass at the sideline, and then Washington's defense blew up a flea flicker for the Giants, before Isaiah Wright muffed the ensuing punt for the football team, and 4 plays later, Big Blue got into the end zone, with Wayne Gallman walking in right up the middle. Kyle Allen got a couple of big completions to Terry McLaurin, but then got his leg twisted awkwardly in a Jabril Peppers sack, which brought Alex Smith back onto the field and ultimately led to a field goal. The Giants extended the lead to 20-3 with a heavy dose of the run game that featured Wayne Gallman and former Washington running back Alfred Morris among others, with a laser from Daniel Jones to Evan Ingram down the seam for a touchdown just before the 2-minute warning. Alex Smith would hit Cam Sims for a big gain on a post route, but as J.D. McKissick tripped on a check down, Blake Martinez scooped the ball off his feet for an interception to send us to halftime. Right out of the break, Alex Smith hit a wide open Cam Sims at the sideline for another huge chunk play, as the defenders jumped on a screen fake, and 3 plays later Antonio Gibson leaped over the pile at the goal line for a touchdown. Back-to-back field goal drives for either team lasted the rest of the third quarter, before Terry McLaurin bailed out his quarterback big time when he caught a contested pass on a deep over route where the hang defender was just waiting for it, but somehow Scary Terry broke the tackle and went 68 yards to the house to make this a field goal difference all of a sudden. Washington's pass rush really started getting after Daniel Jones in the second half, and the G-men punted on the final 3 possessions of the afternoon because of it, but the Giants defense won them the game with consecutive interceptions off Alex Smith, as a high pass to McKissick off a scramble went off the fingertips of the running back and into the hands of Jabril Peppers, and then Logan Ryan just sat there on a deep in-breaking route at the end to Terry McLaurin, which Smith never really had a chance to squeeze that one in as well. Daniel Jones showed bad awareness once again late, as on the final third down, he was sacked by nickel Cameron Curl coming on a blitz, which left his tight end Evan Ingram wide open in the flats as the hot read, but he never even looked there. The Giants actually averaged only 4.7 yards per play, while Washington was at 8 yards on 24 less plays, although a lot of that had to do with the Giants running the ball 35 times for 166 yards, while Washington ran it only 9 times for 37 yards. With the Cowboys losing later on, this almost secures the Eagles a division title. However, this is the NFC East, and who the hell even knows what's going to happen next. And that takes us to the Chicago Bears at the Tennessee Titans. If you want to know how bad this Bears offense really is, the Bengals, and I know Joe Burrow has been incredible, but he's still a rookie, they carved up the Titans for 31 points. It took Chicago 37.5 minutes to even put any points on the board against this defense. Tennessee was on pace to shatter the NFL record for third down percentage allowed defensively at almost 62%. The Bears, they were 2 of 15 on third downs, and Tennessee's pass rush was basically non-existent, with 7 sacks through 7 games. On Sunday they got 3 as well. And still, somehow, with no reasonable explanation for it, the Bears were an onside kick attempt away from having a chance to tie the score at 24 with a minute remaining in the game. On the second play for the Bears offense, Nick Foles hit Jimmy Graham at the sideline for a 24-yard completion, which ended with David Montgomery getting stuffed on the 4th and 1, which started a row of 6 straight punts, while another one doesn't officially make it to the box score like that, as the Bears actually converted on a fake punt to Pakevius Mingo, and that impressive streak of punts was only interrupted by a fumble return touchdown in the second half by newly acquired Titans defensive back Desmond King, who immediately made his presence felt. The Titans didn't make a whole lot of their possessions in the first half either, as they went 3 and out on 5 of the 7 drives, with a potential pick 6 on the game's first third down dropped by Kyle Fuller, but they did score 10 points, with A.J. Brown setting up a field goal by catching a dig route off play action and breaking a tackle, and then he scored from 40 yards away as well, as he hauled in a slot fade route against tight man coverage and extended for the goal line. Brown was a man amongst boys in this matchup, and to me the single biggest reason that Tennessee won this offensively challenged matchup. The Bears defense kept them in the game, as they shut down 3 of the Titans' final 4 drives of the first half with sacks, and even the 2 big plays that they allowed, they were right there with Brown, but couldn't make the tackle or break up the pass. On the second play after halftime, Chicago got their biggest gain of the day, as this time it was Anthony Miller catching a slot fade for 34 yards, but then Cordell Patterson could not extend those final 2 inches on the third down, and as the Bears tried to either go for it or hard count defense on 4th down, they jumped themselves and punted again. Before the next possession, the Titans got that 63-yard scoop and score from King, with Jeffrey Simmons hustling behind the play and knocking the ball out of David Montgomery's hands on a screen pass, after Foles had finally delivered on some big throws to keep that drive going. That's when the Bears finally got on the board at the end of a 15-play drive, but even on that one, they needed a 4th and short conversion, and it ended only in 3 points, with my personal highlight being a designed shovel pass where Foles had nobody to shuffle the ball to, since Allen Robinson was knocked down by his own right tackle, being driven backwards, before Jeffrey Simmons almost picked off a pass that was batted up by Harold Landry. On the other hand, Tennessee got 2 chunk plays from Derrick Henry getting around the right corner for 26 yards, and then Jonnu Smith going 30 on a deep cross-off play action, before the tight end was open for a touchdown in the flats off play action once again. Tennessee would go 3 and out in the final 2 drives, however, while the Bears finally scored 2 more touchdowns, with Allen Robinson setting up the first one with another acrobatic catch on a 50-50 ball along the sideline, and then Ryan Nall tanking in after catching a pass in the flats. And then Jimmy Graham settled in over the middle of the end zone after a series of checkdowns to Nall, making the score 24-17. But in between those 2 drives, Titans linebacker Jayon Brown did a great job of punching the ball out of the hands of Anthony Miller, and the onside kick attempt was finally denied as well. The Bears' offense is just painful to watch. Everything they try to do seems so hard, and when you look at the final numbers, it just doesn't reflect in any way how the game went. Their defense can keep them in games, and they have those late spurts to make things interesting. But they still face Minnesota and Green Bay twice each, who can put some points on the board, and I just don't know if they can keep up, because we have seen them struggle even against bad defenses. Tennessee needed this one badly after consecutive losses following their 5-0 start to the season, as they prepare for a Thursday night battle against the Colts to decide who gets the early heads up in the race for the AFC South. While Chicago now has lost 3 straight after their 5-1 start, they are in deep trouble if they can turn this offense around. And with that being said, let's get to a battle between 2 of the division rivals of the Bears, with the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. And this past week must have been weird for the Lions. After losing by 20 against the Colts, despite being in position to take a lead potentially midway through the 3rd quarter, they would be without their top receiver Kenny Galladay, and quarterback Matthew Stafford was only cleared to play the morning of this game after being in COVID protocols all week long. So as expected, Detroit came out slow, and when they finally started putting their foot on the gas pedal, it was already too late. After putting on a show at Green Bay the prior Sunday with 226 scrimmage yards and 4 touchdowns, Dalvin Cook once again went off, racking up 252 yards and a couple more trips to the end zone. The Vikings scored touchdowns on 3 of the 4 possessions in the first half, with Dalvin getting at least 8 yards basically every time he got the handoff, it felt like, and Kirk Cousins hitting deep crosses and in-breaking routes off play action, with Irv Smith catching one of those in the end zone, and former Lions running back Amir Abdullah scoring off a screen pass just before the break. The Lions, on the other hand, did run 30 plays for 122 yards on the first 3 drives, but only got 3 points out of it as they began things with a 3 and out, and then Matt Prater badly hooked a 46-yard field goal attempt before hitting a chip shot later on, and they finally got into the end zone with just over a minute left before halftime, with Marvin Jones shaking his man after catching speed out. After quick punts for both teams to open the second half, Vikings rookie Justin Jefferson won on a straight go route versus man coverage against Amani Oruwariye, and then got hit on a pass interference to set up another easy 1-yard touchdown to Irv Smith, his second one of the day. Matt Stafford and then Chase Daniel, who came in with Stafford being evaluated for a concussion after getting crushed by a couple of Vikings D linemen, would be picked off a combined 3 times over Detroit's next 4 drives, with a field goal in between those, as the 2 Erics, Eric Wilson and Eric Kendricks, both sat there over the middle of the field, and then Harrison Smith waiting back there on an overthrown fake ball by Daniel. And even though the Vikings punted following all 3 of those, and even had 2 of them blocked, they also got a 70-yard touchdown from their superstar running back, who slipped out of the grasp of a defensive tackle and then turned on the Jets to outrun everybody else. After that second block punt, TJ Hawkinson caught a back shoulder fade at the goal line, but then Minnesota ran another 5 minutes off the clock, with Dalvin's backup, Alexander Madison, tanking through defenders, while Detroit came up a good 10 yards short of getting into the end zone once more to make the final score look a little better. Dalvin Cook just put together a historic 2-game run with 478 total yards and 6 touchdowns, as the Vikings averaged 8.1 yards per carry in this one, while Kirk Cousins was the beneficiary with wide open receivers off the play fake, and he had a near perfect passer rating on his 20 pass attempts, which included 3 touchdowns. The best thing the Lions had going for themselves, to me, was their rookie running back DeAndre Swift, who went for just under 100 scrimmage yards on 16 touches, plus the special teams of course. Their defense could not create any disruption all game long, and even though 2 weeks ago the Lions were 3-3 and the Vikings 1-5, now all of a sudden they are both 3-5 with a glimmer of hope left that they can somehow sneak into the playoffs as a wildcard team, but a lot would have to fall right for them to have a shot. The next one is the Carolina Panthers at the Kansas City Chiefs, and this one really went down to the wire. This was the first time for the Panthers with their superstar running back Christian McCaffrey back in the lineup after missing 6 weeks with an ankle injury, and they tried to get C-Mac involved right away to go along with a lot of movement of the pocket and players motioning around pre-snap while picking apart the Chiefs' zone coverages to go with clutch conversions as they went 15 plays on the first drive, which took almost 9 minutes off the clock and ended in a touchdown on 4th down from 9 yards away, and a little dump off to McCaffrey was left uncovered. The Chiefs countered with an impressive 12-play drive of their own, but only finished with a field goal before Carolina extended their next drive with another fake punt conversion for a second week in a row, with the punter heaving it to a wide open receiver down the seams before Curtis Samuel got around the edge for another touchdown on a jet sweep play to put the Panthers up 14-3 before a deep ball to Mecole Hardman set up a 55-yard kick from Harrison Butker, with Patrick Mahomes just missing Tyreek Hill streaking downfield, and then Hill not able to quite haul in the pass over the middle right at the marker. The Panthers got a little unlucky in the ensuing 3rd down as they ran another one of their mash concepts where they tried to pick for one of those crossing receivers but got called for an offensive pass interference, even though it was actually Anthony Hitchens smacking Curtis Samuel. And after a short punt, KC quickly striked with a big completion to Travis Kelce in a deep over route, and then Tyreek Hill took a slip screen all the way to the 1 before the Chiefs ran another one of those crazy razzle-dazzle plays where they acted like Mahomes was walking out to the sideline, then came back to take the snap on the run, reversed the other way, and threw a laser to Marcus Robinson at the back of the end zone. Kansas City's defense would have had another 3rd down stop, but Chris Jones was called for a rather questionable roughing the passer, which after a throwback screen to Robbie Anderson, who saw plenty of work on that drive, ended in a field goal for a time around on the Chiefs, as DeMarcus Robinson could not get a series of laterals started, sending us to the break with Carolina up 17-13. Both teams missed field goals to start the second half from 48 and 51 yards respectively, before Kansas City got back into the end zone, as Travis Kelce continued to eat up Carolina's zone defense, hauling in 10 of 12 targets for 159 yards on the day, and then Mahomes just flipped it to Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the flats for a touchdown off a fake reverse. A holding call and a Frank Clark sack put the Panthers behind the chains and forced a punt, before this turned into a bit of a shootout, with consecutive touchdown drives for both squads over about the next 15 minutes, with Tyreek Hill running wide open as the Chiefs crossed him with another receiver deep for a touchdown, after already catching a deep ball at the sideline before that, on an acrobatic mid-air adjustment from Curtis Samuel, and then Teddy Bridgewater picking up a 4th and 14 on the scramble and getting airborne at the end of it, before running it in on a quarterback draw. Kansas City got a short field, with the Panthers jumping on the ball too early on a surprise onside kick, which resulted in Mahomes hitting Tyreek on a little comeback route at the front pylon of a designed rollout, and finally an impressive 11-play drive for Carolina was finished off by Christian McCaffrey's second touchdown of the day right up the middle. After a watermelon-style onside kick was recovered by the Chiefs, Carolina's defense was able to force a 3-and-out, with Mahomes getting eaten up by Brian Burns, who made it tough on the quarterback at the mesh point of a read option play, giving the ball back to the Panthers with about 1.5 minutes left from their own 9-yard line with no timeouts, consecutive penalties on Chiefs defensive backs, and Curtis Samuel catching the ball after stopping over the deep middle had Carolina a yard across the 50 with 5 seconds left, where the Panthers actually tried to steal a couple of yards on a pass to DJ Moore at the sideline, but after Amani Watts knocked the ball down, they decided to give their kicker Joey Sly another crack at beating the all-time record for the longest field goal in NFL history. This was the second time they did that in 3 weeks, with this one from 67 yards, but the kick sailed wide right the whole way, allowing the Chiefs to escape with a 2-point victory. The Panthers have now lost 4 straight games after a 3-2 start, but all of them have come by 1 possession, and I've been very impressed with how close they were at New Orleans and now at Kansas City. They can control the clock with long, frustrating drives for the defense, and they've come up with some timely defensive plays themselves to go with a play or two on special teams pretty much every week now. Carolina possessed the ball 38 minutes and 1 second, which was the most in any game all season, with their combination of limiting offensive possessions for the other team and stealing a couple of possessions on the way. Once again, the lack of rushing protection for the Chiefs is concerning to me, with 12 carries for 30 yards on the day, as Derek Brown and company stuffed a few times they tried to running inside. They now enter the bye week and have to reassess a little bit what they want to be, because they might not be able to get away with being that one-dimensional against the top competition. And that takes us to a game that I actually didn't get to watch a whole lot of the Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know 6th-round rookie Jake Luton, on his first third down as a pro, hit a 74-yard deep bomb to DJ Chark, and he scored a late touchdown off a scramble, with the 2-point conversion not being good to give the Texans the win. But he really battled, and James Robinson found a lot of success against the suspect Texans defense. While for Houston, it's all about Deshaun Watson. He's just so special every single week, and without him, they would be one of the worst 2 or 3 teams in the league in my opinion. 2 50-plus yard touchdowns to Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller, with the latter one being on a bit of a controversial play, as the clock had actually run out and there should have been a delay of game, but somehow the refs let it go, and the Jaguars on the sidelines were furious about that one. Oh, and one more thing. Congrats on 100 sacks to JJ Watt. He's not the same player he once was with all those injuries, but when he was at his very best, he was my favorite player to watch in the NFL. But yeah, I'm fully transparent here. I really only watched the extended highlights of this one, and that allowed me to focus more on one of the battle between 2 of the better teams in the AFC, with the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts. Coming into this matchup, both teams were 5-2 and feeling top 4 scoring defenses, and those were the units that ruled the day early on, as we saw 8 punts in the first half, and 7 of the 17 points that were scored came from the defense. Baltimore's offense in particular could not get into any kind of rhythm, as the Colts defensive front created penetration on multiple occasions, and their team's speed did not allow those long development plays for the Ravens to even get going, with Darius Leonard spying on Lamar Jackson for the most part and taking away angles towards the sideline. They crossed the 50-yard line just once through the first half, which ended in a punt after getting to a 3rd and 35, and Anthony Walker actually dropped an interception over the middle. And they were lucky to only be down 10-7 at the break, with just over 50 yards of total offense, and their only touchdown coming on the scoop and score play for Chuck Clark, after rookie running back Jonathan Taylor's one big issue at Wisconsin showed up here, the fumbling, and Clark took it back to the house, including jumping over Phillip Rivers, who had tripped over his own feet before. Indy actually put together a couple of impressive drives offensively, which ended in Jonathan Taylor leaping over the pile at the goal line for a touchdown on the second possession of the day, and then a field goal with less than a minute remaining, as they were very balanced with the power run game, some jet sweeps to attack the edges of the defense, and those classic Phillip Rivers touch passes on deep crosses. But of course that scoop and score was very costly and kept the Ravens in the game. In the second half, a different Ravens squad seemed to come out of the locker room. Lamar started throwing the ball with confidence and more zip behind it, as he had a couple of strikes to Marquise Brown and got him all the way to the Indy 3-yard line. But then DeForest Buckner made an outstanding play of knifing through the line from the backside of a play and knocking the ball out of the hands of Gus Edwards for a huge turnover. But fortunately for Baltimore, Phillip Rivers gave it right back to the visitors on an underthrown go ball that Marcus Peters picked off, even though it didn't look like a catch at first sight, and was overturned more due to how the rule is written in the book, it felt like. And when the Ravens got to the goal line this time, the Gus Bus finished it off in the end zone. Rivers threw another deep ball that only one of Baltimore's defensive backs could have gotten their hands on, and after a quick 3-and-out, the Ravens went on an impressive 14-play drive that took over 8 minutes off the clock, with Lamar picking apart the Colts zone defense with short passes into those open areas, and then on 3rd and short, he kept the ball in a naked bootleg to score from 9 yards away untouched. Indianapolis made it into the red zone on a good-looking drive after that, but on a 4th and inches, they went heavy play action, and Rivers actually had somebody open in the flats. Matt Judon put a lick on the Colts quarterback and got them off the field. The Ravens defense would put heat on Rivers a couple more times and forced another turnover on downs, which led to a Justin Tucker field goal before time ran out on the Colts to make the final score 24-10. The Ravens offense saw a complete turnaround from the first to the second half, with Lamar looking like a different guy from within the pocket, and the dive action being more successful to open up the edges for the quarterback and also open up space behind the second level, while the defense played more assignment-proof football and took the rushing attack out of the game, just 37 yards on the ground after halftime for the Colts. I still love this Indy defense, but I just need to see Rivers be more consistent and that run game to be more productive to really buy into this team, since I actually had them winning the division preseason. And the Ravens have now set an all-time record with 31 straight games of 20+ points. They might not look as dominant as they were last year, but they show up every week, and their 2 losses came against what to me are still the top 2 teams in the league, with the Chiefs and the Steelers. A more exciting offensive showing came between the Seattle Seahawks at the Buffalo Bills. Coming into this matchup, the Seahawks had just destroyed the 49ers last Sunday, while the Bills were coming off an emotional win over the Patriots, which really felt like a passing of the torch for AFC East supremacy. So Buffalo had every reason to suffer kind of a letdown in this one, but instead they came out like gangbusters, going up 17-0 in the blink of an eye. The opening kickoff was taken all the way to the opposing 45-yard line by Andre Roberts, and 3 plays later, the Bills were in the end zone on a beautiful deep ball from Josh Allen to Isaiah McKenzie. They scored in the first 4 possessions of the first half, with a missed 61-yard field goal attempt just before the break, ending that perfect streak. Josh Allen was absolutely on fire, and because he was so sharp and in control against his questionable Seattle secondary, they put the ball in his hands routinely as they called run on just 3 of 36 plays, with Allen completing 24 of 28 for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns at the half alone, with Stephon Diggs being the recipient in plenty of those, who was almost high-stepping through the defense after some of those catches. The 2 other touchdowns came on a laser to Tyler Kroft at the back of the end zone off play action, and basically have jumped past to rookie wide receiver Gabriel Davis. Even though the Bills' run game was barely effective in this one, play action was highly effective, and Allen had a perfect passer rating off the play fake. The Seahawks, on the other hand, didn't start out so hot, as they went 3-and-out in the first try, and then Russell Wilson was picked off on a 4th and goal by Jordan Poyer, as the Bills were all over the receivers off heavy play action from a jumbo set. It took Seattle's number 1 scoring offense over 23 minutes of game action to finally get on the board, as Russ targeted DK Metcalf on a couple of deep balls against Trey White, resulting in big yardage on a pass interference and then making a catch, before Russ sneaked it in himself on another 4th and goal. They got another field goal with just over a minute left on the clock, as Russ hit Jacob Hollister down the seams and on a deep crosser, before another deep ball was beautifully broken up by Levi Wallace to force them to settle for 3. Down 20-10, coming out of the locker room, the Seahawks needed to get back into the action, but on their first 3rd down, Jerry Hughes stripped Wilson from behind to set his offense up at the fringe of the red zone already, and then after Carlos Dunlap got his first sack as a member of Seattle in that weird-looking number 43, Allen hit Gabe Davis on a post-corner route, who was just pushed out of bounds at the opposing 1, but the Bills ultimately had to settle for 3. The Seahawks will get the next 10 points, with Russ hitting Metcalf on a big catch and run play soon after that, and then DJ Dallas finishing things off in the end zone, while the Bills finally would go 3-and-out with a couple of sacks to force a punt, and then Seattle kicked another field goal after Will Dissly got the ball in a wide open deep crosser, and then Tyler Lockett almost hauled in a ridiculous moonball from Wilson as he was getting dragged down. At 27-20, it felt like Seattle might be on the way of pulling another one of these wins out of the hat, but Zach Moss got a big gain on a screen pass, and then after Josh Allen was stripped by Jerron Reed, which he hauled the loose ball in himself whilst going down, it was 3rd and 16 from the Seahawks 35. But then Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll made the perfect call to punish the Seahawks all-out blitz with a simple slip screen to John Brown, who took it all the way to the 2-yard line, from where Zach Moss scored to make this a 2-score game again. And as Russ tried to drill in a pass to DK at the sideline on a 3rd and 25 after being taken down twice already, Trey White picked that one out of the air and returned it all the way to Seattle free, from where Allen ran it in himself on a quarterback sweep play. 2 plays later, however, Buffalo actually completely lost David Moore for a 55-yard touchdown, who just kept going to the end zone in the fade route, while Russ extended the play, and after the Bills just came short on the ensuing 3rd down, they had to punt the ball back. But when the Hawks got to their 3rd down, A.J. Klein recorded his 2nd sack of the game and ripped it away from Wilson whilst they were going to the ground, which led to another field goal and kind of put this one out of reach. Seattle would drive down the field for another touchdown, with DK on a slant route, but after an unsuccessful onside kick, the Bills just ran out the clock to make this a 10-point difference at the end. And how quickly perception can change. Just on the morning of this game, everybody loved the Seahawks as one of the elite teams in the league, while Josh Allen had been slipping and the Bills were just a flash in the pan for many folks out there. Then the Bills quarterback goes out there and absolutely lights up Seattle's defense, while the MVP frontrunner under center on the other side made a couple of big mistakes and was banged around by the Bills pass rush. Russ was knocked down 16 times over the course of the afternoon, which is most for any quarterback this entire season, and Allen was actually sacked 7 times as well, since he was constantly looking to extend plays, and to be honest, the results were worth it for the most part. When you take those numbers and then see that there were 78 combined points in this game, It almost makes no sense. But let's talk about the final 1 p.m. game here, with the Denver Broncos at the Atlanta Falcons. And as much as I want to credit the Falcons here for winning 3 of the last 4 games, they almost found a way to blow another one. Atlanta was up 20-3 at halftime, with Matt Ryan and his receivers dicing up the Broncos secondary, as Ryan let it fly for a 51-yard touchdown on a deep post to Olamide Zaccheaus, and then Zaccheaus also set up a Brandon Powell touchdown by getting free for another 42 yards. Denver got a big catch and run play out of Noah Fant on their first possession of the game, but had to punt on the outside of field goal range, and after getting 3 on the board, thanks to big completions to rookies Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, they picked up just 21 yards the rest of the half. After a field goal for Denver to start the second half, Matt Ryan for some reason just threw it as far as he could on another post route to Zaccheaus, even though Justin Simmons had rotated into the deep middle of the field and was able to pick it off. But with the Broncos going 3-and-out after that, Atlanta would be the first ones to get into the end zone once again, as Ryan just tossed it up for Julio Jones on a beautiful post corner route, putting the Falcons up 27-6. In the second half, Drew Lock was really looking for Jerry Jeudy, who drew a big pass interference and won as a route runner on several occasions, with his touchdown coming on a particularly slick route, as he already threw his arm up, signaling that he was going by fellow rookie cornerback AJ Terrell, but then just stopped on a dime on a deep curl route and went the final 5 yards into the end zone. Lock would come back with a really careless pick, as he threw it over Judy's head on a crossing route while letting it go off his back foot, and after the Ricardo Allen interception, Todd Gurley punched it in for a touchdown to make this a 3-touchdown difference once again. And then Denver would actually turn it over on downs at the Atlanta 35, but after the Falcons punted the ball back to the visitors, that's when things got a little dangerous for them, as the Broncos scored 2 more touchdowns in a matter of less than 4 minutes, with bad tackling and letting people run by them to allow things to go way too easy, as Tim Patrick scored once on a slant route, and then Locke got the second one in a scramble from 10 yards away. However, it would have still been all fine, with an onside kick attempt being denied and being able to run down most of the final 151, with Denver having only 1 timer left. But on 3rd down, the Falcons get flagged for an illegal formation, which stops the clock and gives the Broncos another chance with 38 seconds. A pass over the deep middle was unfortunately dropped by Jeudy, and then Philip Lindsay had another one slip through his hands before the Broncos had a disgrace of a last play on 4th down, with like 3 guys in motion at the same time, and then snapping one of them, which sealed the game on a fumble. A win is a win, and the Falcons played some good football these last 2 weeks, but I get nervous for them whenever I see something pop up on my side screen where I have Red Zone on, because this did not have to be as close as it ultimately was. Now let's move on to the midday window, with the Las Vegas Raiders at the LA Chargers, another game that really came down to the final play. The Chargers opened the game with 2 promising drives, but didn't get any points out of it, as one ended in a punt from midfield, and the second one in a missed 48-yard field goal attempt. The Raiders started with a 3-and-out that included a couple of dangerous passes being knocked up in the air, before in the second possession, they heavily fed Jalen Richard, and then Devontae Booker was the first to score on a sweep play from 23 yards away for a touchdown. LA countered with an impressive 13-play drive of their own, with Justin Herbert giving his receivers yards after catch opportunities, and then Kalen Ballage running it in from 14 yards away. On the very next play, Devontae Booker ripped off another big gain on that same sweep play, the other direction this time, but the Raiders would have to punt, and after a 3-and-out from LA's side, Vegas scored next, as this time it was Josh Jacobs getting around the right edge for a touchdown. However, Herbert and company would answer, as first the rookie quarterback had Mike Williams on 3rd and 16, where the Raiders gave him way too much space to run, and then he went to Keenan Allen on a deep over from 27 yards out for a touchdown. Herbert routinely looked for Allen, who caught 6 passes for 80 yards and a touchdown in the first half alone. Now tied at 14, with just 19 seconds left on the clock, the Raiders could have just taken a knee, but instead 2 plays later, Chargers defensive tackle Jerry Tillery got a strip sack and recovery off Carr, who had barely done anything up to that point, and took the lead with zeros on the clock on a 45-yard field goal. However, just 4 plays into the second half, Carr hit a bomb to Nelson Aguilar for a 45-yard touchdown, and after a 3-and-out by the Chargers, he delivered another perfect deep ball to Hunter Renfrow for 53 yards, which a few plays later led to a 2-yard touchdown from Darren Waller at the back of the end zone, who snatched it out of the air. All of a sudden, the Silver and Black were up 28-17, and I can't even talk enough about how Carr has been looking to push the ball down the field more this season. That can really open up the offense. Herbert would answer with a beautiful rainbow throw to Tyron Johnson, working across the field for a 50-yard completion, but with passes in the end zone going off the hands of Mike Williams and Hunter Henry, they had to settle for a field goal. But with the Raiders deciding to punt it away on the outside of field goal range themselves, the Chargers drove right back down the field, and for a second straight week, Herbert tossed a touchdown to fullback Nate Gabers, this time on a throwback screen, but he got knocked down pretty hard on that one, which brought in Tyrod Taylor on the ensuing 2-point conversion attempt, which after a great scramble was stopped short. And even though the Bolts D could force a 3 and out, the Raiders got another chance on a muff punt from KJ Hill, which set up a field goal to extend the lead to 5 and give the ball back to the Chargers with about 4.5 minutes left. 12 plays later, Ellie would be inside the opposing 5, with a 4th and 1 conversion from Kalen Ballage on a speed option already, and a Mike Williams skying for a pass near the sideline, but not quite being able to get out of bounds. That allowed Herbert to spike the ball with 6 seconds left, and he went right back to Williams on a goal line fade, who could not quite hold on to the ball, and now was down to one more play with 1 second remaining. But even when it looked like the Chargers had finally finished with a win, on another fade to tight end Donald Parham, who was lined up as single receiver, that one was ruled incomplete upon review, and finished another devastating chapter in the book of late game drama for the Chargers. Credit last year's 4th round pick Isaiah Johnson for finding a way to break up consecutive goal line fades and basically win that game for them late. I don't know who did it, but the Chargers have a spell cast upon them. Justin Herbert has been so great for them, and they could have easily won 4 more games with him on the center, but for some reason, they always find a way to lose. At this point, it has to be mentioned that they went to one of the worst goal line plays analytically speaking on consecutive snaps, with the second one going to a 3rd string tight end. So some of the fault definitely goes to them here as well. While the Raiders, on the other hand, they continue to just win, baby. Let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Dallas Cowboys. Way more competitive than anybody would have imagined. While no, the Steelers ultimately won, and in the end, that's all that matters. To me, this was one of the 2 most surprising games of the weekend because of how close the Cowboys, who had been outscored by 64 combined points over these last 3 weeks, actually were to pulling off the upset over a 7-0 Steelers team. The Steelers' offense was highly disappointing in the first half, being held scoreless until Big Ben hit James Washington in the end zone of a double move with just over a minute left until the break, with 3 punts and a turnover on downs before that, when the Cowboys defense stuffed him on the 4th and short attempt. While Dallas actually moved the ball in that field Steelers defense, as first-time starting quarterback Garrett Gilbert hit Amari Cooper for a 32-yard gain on a slot fade route on the initial 3rd down, and after a big run from Tony Pollard, they got on the board with a field goal. And after that 4th down stop from the defense, it looked like Pittsburgh got Gilbert for a sack, but he got out of the defender's grasp for one of 2 nice scrambles before he hit CeeDee Lamb in the end zone on an out and up as he was on the move to put them up 10-0. The Dallas defense forced another 3 and out. They threw up a throw across the field to CJ Goodwin, who dropped it for a second, but then returned it all the way inside the opposing 10, and even with a block in the back, moving it back a little, they were still at the opposing 30, setting up another field goal. I only realized later on film that Goodwin actually acted like he pulled his hamstring after blocking his man he was the gunner against. Cowboys special teams coach John Fassel is just a mad scientist. But as the Cowboys tried to make something happen after that Steelers touchdown, with about a minute left on the clock, CeeDee Lamb had the ball punched out from behind, which set up the Pittsburgh offense at the fringe of field goal range already again, with Ben Roethlisberger actually in the tunnel already after he got banged up just before that, but Chris Boswell bailed him out on a 59-yard kick to make the score 13-9 at the break. Dallas would hit 2 more field goals after halftime, as Gilbert continued to make quick, good decisions in addition to extending plays, while Pollard and Zeke found some open against that Pittsburgh's defense, while the Steelers started with yet another 3 and out, but then Big Ben really started to feature Juju in the next possession for some big first downs, and then deep over the middle for a touchdown, but Juju had to fight his way over the last couple of yards, but the PAT would be no good once again. This time it was a block. Undrafted rookie running back Rico Dowdle would take the ensuing kickoff all the way to Pittsburgh's 36, and the Cowboys made it to a goal-to-go situation with a chance to really make a mark and put themselves up by multiple possessions. But on 3rd down, a desperation heave from Gilbert as he was getting hit was picked off by Minkah Fitzpatrick, which after a good-looking drive ended in 3 points for the visitors to pull within 1. And after Dallas punt, the Steelers took their first lead of the game as Deontay Johnson caught an out route, slipped off the initial defender, and went 42 yards, setting up an easy touchdown to Eric Ebron on a shallow crosser as the 2 receivers on the opposite side drew away the coverage with slant routes, but another slant to Claypool on the 2-point attempt would be denied. After an initial first down, the Cowboys would turn it over on downs. with Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt combining for a huge sack on 4th down. And when the Steelers got to 4th and 1 right after that, they actually decided to go for it rather than extend it to an 8-point lead with a field goal, in large part due to the 2 missed PATs probably, but Randy Gregory stuffed the James Conner run in the backfield, and that gave Dallas one more chance with 38 seconds left, and on the first play after that, Gilbert hit CeeDee Lamb on the move for an unbelievable toe-tap catch to already set them up in midfield, and after another 20-yard gain over the middle to Michael Gallup, it came down to one play from the Steelers' 23, but the pass was broken up by Minka right at the goal line to escape in this one and stay undefeated. This was a shocking game, the worst the Steelers have played, and by far the best that the Cowboys have since Dak went down with the season-ending ankle injury. This was a complete mismatch, and Vegas actually had Pittsburgh as a 14-point favorite, but somehow they have gained that reputation for playing down to the competition over the years. And while they are still in the driver's seat for the AFC's number 1 seed, nothing about the offense is super impressive to me, other than maybe having a couple of freakish athletes at the receiver position. But with that, we get to the best game of the entire weekend, with the Miami Dolphins at the Arizona Cardinals. We had 3 big storylines coming into this matchup. First, the rematch between the quarterbacks from the 2018 Orange Bowl in Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray, which Kyler that year actually finished just in front of Tua in the Heisman voting. Then there was the fact that both teams were on 3-game winning streaks. And then the late reports from that same morning that 5 Dolphins assistant coaches were not able to be there due to COVID concerns. Miami started with a quick 3-and-out before their defense created another big play with something similar than what they did already last week against the Rams, how to give those guys big trouble. And I actually did a short video breakdown on my Instagram and Twitter if you're interested, as they showed 7 men at the line and dropped a couple of guys out late in shallow zones, which left Shaq Lawson unblocked coming off one edge and then flushed Kyler Murray the other way right into the hands of Emmanuel Ogbah, who knocked the ball out, and it was scooped and taken back to the house by Lawson to put the Dolphins up 7-0 early on. But Cal and company would answer quickly with a touchdown drive where he hooked up with Christian Kirk a couple of times, and then the quarterback picked up a 3rd down on a scramble before he hit Max Williams for an easy 3-yard touchdown, with him open in flats for play action. Tua would lead a 10-play touchdown drive for the Dolphins right after that, including that play that the Chiefs love to run and that I've highlighted here before, where the quarterback fakes swing routes both ways and then comes back over the middle for a tight end screen before Jordan Howard finished the end zone from 2 yards away. Kyler's mobility was a huge factor in this matchup, since he could spin away from the free rusher and escape backdoor, but a few plays after going down 14-7 again, he punished Miami's cover 0 with his arm this time, as he threw a 56-yard strike to Kirk for a touchdown on a post route. However, Tua continued to be on point as well, with pinpoint accuracy and subtle pocket movement to avoid the rush, and he quickly took the offense back down the field as well, with a hookup to Preston Williams on a spot route, leading to another touchdown. What I loved about him at Alabama, and what really showed in this game as well, is his ability to work through progressions super quickly, and then also have his feet ready to release as soon as he sees something. The Dolphins moved the pocket quite a bit to make him comfortable. Credit offensive coordinator Jan Gailey for doing that, but you saw that too as a difference maker right away. Arizona got back deep into opposing territory following that, with Kyler scrambling for a huge 3rd down conversion, but they ultimately had to settle for 3. And then both teams would have to punt, with Miami getting themselves into a 3rd and 31 situation, and Andy Isabella giving the 3rd down conversion away again for Arizona, as he moved behind the 1st down marker, trying to get away from a defender, which allowed the Dolphins to extend the lead to 24-17 entering halftime, as Jason Sanders hit a 56-yard field goal at the end of the half. The Cardinals almost turned it over in the second half's opening kickoff, as Isabella fumbled the ball, but instead he would go the distance of the field, capped off by a contested catch from tight end Darrell Daniels for a game-tying touchdown, where he ripped it away from cornerback Byron Jones. Miami would quickly have to punt, as Vance Joseph gave themselves their own medicine by scheming up a free rush up the middle in Devontae Campbell for a sack on Tua, and that's when the Cardinals started getting Xavier Howard into some trouble, really for the first time this year, as he got 2 big pass interference on him working against DeAndre Hopkins, who had been very quiet up to that point, including one on a pass that fell incomplete on 4th down, which was offset by a hold before Kyler made the defender miss on the second try of that 4th down, as he kept the ball in the read option, and then he finished on a similar play in the end zone with a lead blocker out in front of him. On the ensuing 3rd down for Miami, Tua zipped the curl route to the outside shoulder of Devontae Parker for a crucial conversion, before shaking Buda Baker in the open field as he decided to take off on the next 3rd down, and then he got 17 yards on another magical scramble, leading to a touchdown on a jump ball fade to Matt Collins. Right after that, Kyler got away again on the 3rd down scramble, and then picked up a 4th and 1 as he kept the ball in a speed option. But on another 4th and inches attempt, Chase Edmonds got stuffed in the backfield, and after Tua threw it up for Mike Gesicki in a corner route, Jason Sanders hit the Dolphins' franchise record with his 20th consecutive field goal, this time on a 50-yarder, to put Miami up by 3. Trying to tie the game or potentially take the lead, Murray hit Christian Kirk on a deep over route on the very next play to get him to the fringe of field goal range already, and that ultimately set up Zane Gonzalez for a 49-yarder to tie things up yet again. But unlike anybody watching it on TV thought, the kick actually fell short, and after one more first down with Tua sneaking ahead, the game was over. This was the most fun matchup of the weekend to me because we had two great young quarterbacks going back and forth while the defense made some plays as well, and it really came down to one kicker making his field goal attempt and the other coming up short. Miami is pretty much the hottest team in football right now, and they are right in the thick of things for a playoff berth in the AFC, if not for a chance to win the AFC East, with a rematch against the Bills being penciled in for Week 17. I could definitely see things coming down to that game. And that takes us to Sunday night, with the most hyped matchup of the weekend, as Drew Brees and Tom Brady maybe faced off for the final time in their illustrious careers. The Saints had won the first meeting in the season opener, which was somewhat expected with the Bucs offense still getting things together, but coming into this one, Tampa looked like the most complete team in the NFC. However, they got their asses kicked for 60 minutes on Sunday night. The Bucs offense really struggled to get anything going. They tried to take a deep shot on the very first play, and Brady got hit by Cam Jordan, who was beating rookie right tackle Tristan Wirfs in 1-on-1, which would set the tone right away, with 4 straight 3-and-outs to start the game. When they finally picked up a first down on a pass to rookie Tyler Johnson, Marcus Davenport got a hand on the running back screen, which fell into the hands of fellow D lineman David Onyemata for an interception. On the 5th possession, the Bucs would make it to the opposite side of the field finally, after a tough catch by Chris Godwin on a deep in route, and then Antonio Brown's first grab as a member of Tampa Bay. But on 4th down, a deep ball to Gronk went just off the fingertips of the tight end, and on the one more chance that they got, even after their best back-to-back plays, and the longest play of the night with a 22-yard grab from Mike Evans, a deep ball towards AB was picked off by Marcus Williams. Brady was clearly uncomfortable in the pocket, and had several deep balls not even close to his guys, while his receivers could barely create any separation. The Saints, on the other hand, scored on 5 of the 6 possessions in the first half, outside of a kneel down after that second Brady interception, with the only drive not resulting in any points coming on a Jared Cook fumble at the Tampa Bay 2 as he was fighting for the goal line. However, just before the first points of the night, as insensitive as it may sound, if Jason Pierre-Paul has 2 normal hands, he might have a pick 6. That was a play prior to Drew Brees hitting a wide open Traquan Smith in the end zone as the defense jumped on a slipstream fake. Another touchdown went to rookie tight end Adam Troutman on a ball that was just fit in there by Brees on a stick knot route. Emmanuel Sanders came with the 3rd one on a route that actually Brady loves to run in the red zone, where it looks like the receiver runs a deep over, but then pivots back outside. So they got Jamal Dean on yet another double move. And then Alvin Kamara get into the end zone as well, after a big Taysom Hill run on a quarterback power as well, to go with a late field goal, putting the Saints up 31-0 at the half. Brees was on point for pretty much the entire night, and the Bucs pass rush could barely get a hand on him, with plenty of quick passes, versus the Bucs playing a ton of zone and laying back surprisingly, plus Taysom Hill was completing passes and hurling over defenders when he lined up at quarterback. New Orleans had another impressive drive going to start the second half, but then the Bucs D finally made another big play, with Shaq Barrett exposing a matchup in a 1-on-1 situation with giant Jared Cook, and he stripped Brees near midfield, which was returned to the fringe of the red zone. But even when they had a goal-to-goal situation from the 1-yard line, following a pass interference against Gronk, there would be no points scored on those 4 downs, which was the first time for the Bucs not scoring in a goal-to-goal situation, while it was the first time for the Saints actually stopping one of them. After New Orleans punt following a couple of first downs, Trey Hendrickson basically got 3 sacks in a row, but it was only credited with 1.5 I believe, as one was cancelled by a defensive hold, and he had to share his second one with Cam Jordan. And when the Bucs went for it on 4th down, Brady was picked off for a 3rd time, this time by Malcolm Jenkins, as he threw a prayer across the field after getting away from the rush momentarily. Jenkins, I thought, had his best game back in New Orleans, blanketing and basically erasing Gronk for most of the 60 minutes. The Saints would take about 7 more minutes off the clock on the next drive, with Taysom Hill taking the majority of the snaps, while Brees got the Bucs on a cheap first down on a hard count, and then created some more distance to the quarterback on the opposite side of the field in the all-time ranks with another touchdown to Josh Hill. The Bucs then finally got on the board with a field goal on 4th and 20, but 38-3 would be the final score as the Saints ran on the rest of the clock. This was a dominating performance by New Orleans in all phases of the game, and it completely flips expectations for playoff seeding down the road, with the Saints being a game up and having the series sweep now. But more than anything, this was just such a letdown after how much this matchup was hyped up to be. I hope we get a chance to see a more intriguing battle in the playoffs, as those two teams could meet again somewhere down the road. Marshawn Lattimore once again won the fight against Mike Evans pretty clearly, who he kept catchless when they were matched up in the two meetings, even though there was a big defensive pass interference call in the season opener, but 0 catches. And Tampa Bay set a new all-time record low with only 5 rushing attempts on the night, when they are actually a power run team who takes their deep shots off play action from heavy personnel max protection. And this was one of Brady's worst performances in his 20 years as a pro. Not having Vita Vea in the middle of the defense to stop the run and push the pocket versus Drew Brees, whose biggest problems is interior pressure, really hurt the Bucs defense to go along with their conservative nature in this matchup. And that takes us to a final game here, Monday night. Not a very intriguing matchup when you look at it on paper, but it certainly delivered much more than Sunday night did. After basically giving away the AFC East crown to the Bills last week, the Patriots needed to avoid losing to another division rival in the Jets, and they barely did, even though the Jets were without starting quarterback Sam Darnold. So, full transparency, I put a bit of money on the Jets under 16.5 points, but they already crossed that mark in the first half and had every chance to win this game. Watching 35-year-old Joe Flacco in the Jets uniform, he gave me flashbacks of those playoff Joe performances at the start of the 2010s. The Jets had some success running zone behind the massive rookie left tackle Mekhi Becton on the opening possession, who created some big movement at the point of attack, but when he went to the sideline after that drive, it was all on Flacco and those rather unknown receivers. New York's second-round pick Denzel Mims made some plays. Flacco launched a perfect deep ball on a stutter and go off play action to Brashad Perriman for a 50-yard touchdown, and then with a minute left in the half, they got a long pass interference penalty before Flacco threw an absolute dime to Jamison Crowder on the corner route, who did his best to drag that back foot in the end zone, putting the Jets up 20-10 heading into the break. Gang Green hadn't crossed the 10-point mark in any of their last 4 games, but they scored on 4 of their 5 possessions in the first half, and on the only one that they didn't, they were just outside field goal range, it felt like, and decided to punt instead to pin New England inside their own 10. On the Patriots' first offensive play, they got 12 yards on an inside handoff to Damian Harris, with about half the yardage coming after contact as the whole offensive line pushed him from behind, and they put together an impressive opening drive for a touchdown. And they moved the ball pretty well, but on the next 2 drives they had to punt and then turn it over on downs at the fringe of field goal range as Folorunso Fatukasi blew up a run play for them before they cashed in on a late field goal. Cam Newton and his receivers were able to get some completions in the quick game, but when they needed anything dynamic, they had to do it from 21 personnel with 2 receivers in the route off play action, oftentimes with Jacoby Myers being the target on deep over and in routes. Damian Harris started the second half just like he began the night, with a physical run for a new first down in the initial play, which started an impressive 13-play opening drive that lasted half the third quarter and ended in Rex Burkhead punching it in for a touchdown, before the Jets took down the rest of the clock and sent us to the fourth quarter already pretty much on a balanced drive of their own, with Flacco beating the blitz on a couple of third downs before lobbing it for Brashad Perriman on a fade route to the end zone, who made J.C. Jackson fall with a patient release of the line to put his team back up by 10. New England put together another lengthy drive with a magic play from Cam, getting away from a couple of defenders in the backfield and completing it over the middle to go with some tough yardage in the run game. And even though the Jets gifted the visitors a free first down by having 12 men on the field goal block team, 3 points would be the final result. J.C. Jackson, who basically took on the role of Stephon Gilmore in his absence, had a shaky first half, outside of breaking up a deep ball on the opening drive to force a field goal, as he had already allowed 2 touchdowns. But now down by 7, he redeemed himself on the very next play with an interception on an over-the-shoulder grab against the post route, which a few plays later led to the Patriots' longest run play of the night, with Damian Harris bouncing off tackles for 21 yards, before he unfortunately got hurt on the very next play. Then Cam easily picked up a 4th and short on a sneak, which they averaged like 5 or 6 yards on the 3 attempts that they had, and Amir Byrd worked across the field after catching a curl route to set up Cam plowing ahead on another sneak to tie the game at 27. Now just beyond the 2-minute warning, Flacco and the Jets had a chance to put together a drive to get them their first win of the season, but on second down, Flacco had to hold the ball before anybody could run open against zone coverage, and Deatrich Wise got to him from behind for the Patriots' first sack of the night, and then the quarterback had to let it go off his back foot with another rush in his face, which fell incomplete and gave the ball back to New England with 47 seconds left and all 3 timeouts. Cam and company put together a drive where they perfectly managed the clock and still were able to run the things that they're successful at, taking advantage of the pressure Gang Green put on the quarterback with a couple of screens to James White, another big quarterback sneak on 3rd and 1, and then the spike to leave them with 8 seconds, which was followed up by a laser from Cam to Jacoby Myers on a deep curl route, and a timeout at 3 seconds, setting up a game-winning 51-yard field goal for the longtime Jet Nick Folk, and the Patriots found a way to escape. This was a much more intriguing game than I could have ever imagined, with Flacco and Cam both kind of having flashbacks and coming through for their teams, with the Jets playing by far their best game of the season, but the Patriots somehow got it done for a gritty win, and at 3-5, they are not dead quite yet. Jacoby Myers had the performance of his life, with 12 catches for 169 yards. That's already more than the first-round pick from a year ago N'Keal Harry has all season long. Myers was one of my favorite undrafted free agents last year, and to be honest, I think he has been New England's best receiver this season. But that is it for a Week 9 recap. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'd also really appreciate it if you could share it with a couple of friends maybe. If you have any more questions, just leave them in the comments or DM me on my social media, which I've linked down below. Like I mentioned already, I put up my mid-season NFL awards last week, so you can check that out on my page, helloswithfootballtalk.com. And I will be back next week with another weekly recap on Wednesday. So until then, see you later. Peace.